Hey, how's it going? I'm Chris with PearsonCopy.com, and I'm here to help your brands make more sales with email. As a part of my 100 emails in 100 days breakdown challenge, I'm actually breaking down an email from OluKai today. I've broken down, I think, two other emails of theirs. I really like their brand. I really like what they're doing with the email. They do use a hybrid mixture of design and copy. This email today specifically is, I call it a promo email or broadcast email. It is focusing on their trip to Fiji and the stories that they're going to tell behind that trip and why they went and the whole reason why they went. So this email really caught my attention because those stories are buried in this email. There's a couple in here that I think they could pull out into multiple emails. I think that their stay in Fiji could have been leveraged a little bit more. They could have done a daily email. They could have done a duration promo where from the day that they land to the day they leave, they could do a promo and sell more products that way by telling stories in Fiji with the products, something like that. So this email has a lot going for it, and I think there's a lot we could pull out of it to actually extend this for any other trip or event or something they do in the future. So not always do you have to do a promo on a holiday or a nationally recognized event or even a cultural recognized event. You can do promos almost with any reason you have. So like for OluKai, for example, they went to Fiji. That's a reason. They're saying they can say we went to Fiji on a trip and we're doing a duration promo while we're in Fiji for these days at these times with this discount, and we're going to tell you stories while we're here to basically show you our products and with story. So that's something that you can do with almost any reason. So with that being said, let me go dive into this email. We'll break this down and we'll do some takeaways at the end. So let's start with the subject line here. So the subject line is Sigatoka Sand Dunes, Fiji. So this is a destination. I wrote here it's a destination, so that's new, something curious, maybe interesting, because it's like I don't know what that is, but I know what Fiji is. I'm curious. I want to know what they're talking about here. Also, the desire to go to Fiji or visit tropical places or beautiful places in general where you could wear sandals. So OluKai's customer base probably enjoys beaches. They probably enjoy maybe jungle scenarios. Maybe there's different destinations that they want to go to or they've been to that they want to remember, and Fiji's one of them. So I just want to applaud OluKai for this, is saying, hey, we're in Fiji. We're going to talk about that. That's fantastic. Anything you've got going on behind the scenes, you can use it as email fodder. You can use that as concepts, hooks. You can use it as a reason to send. I mean, anything you're doing with your business behind the scenes, use that to send emails. As long as you have a reason, you can send. And I think that this reason for OluKai is actually, it's great because it's something their customers either want to go to or want to experience, or they already have and they want to be reminded of it, right? So I think this subject line does a lot of heavy lifting for their ideal customer. The next thing I've talked about in most of my email breakdowns here is the from name and the from email address. I'll briefly mention this, and you can watch my other videos on this because I go into depth quite a lot. Is that OluKai, I think, has an opportunity with their trips that they do to like Fiji or the events they may do or anything like that, where they're out of the office, going somewhere to experience the world and bring the world to their customers. Give them reasons to wear sandals, right? So if you can give people reasons to go see the beach or wherever you're going to wear sandals, that's a huge deal, right? That's a catalyst to purchase. Something to keep in mind here is this email, and something I'm talking about a little bit about the stories that are in this email. There's quite a few stories you can pull out of this email alone, and I imagine they have them on their site. When you click through, you can go shop the story, which we'll talk about here in a sec. But making this from name personal on this Fiji trip, maybe having somebody from the brand emailing specifically and saying, "Hey, the whole office is on a trip in Fiji. I'm Dave, or I'm Karen, or Cheryl, or whatever, and I'm going to be emailing you this week for this promo or for our trip because I want to keep you up to date on what we're doing day to day because we think it's so important that we respect, Fiji, and we respect the environment and nature, etc." So you could have turned this email into a more personal email, potentially remove the images, potentially just go plain text, and just tell stories of while you're in Fiji. Put those images in people's minds as opposed to show them to their face, right? Get them tied into the story, get them to care about it. Because I mean, I don't know how much the movie and fiction book industry is worth, but the story industry in general is worth billions and billions of dollars. So it works. Stories work. And I think this could be the next event they do. They could take this to the next level with their emails. If they do make it from a specific person, they can leave it at newsletter at this domain name. But having this come from a specific person saying, "Hey, we're emailing you from our individual account, so I can keep you up to date with our day to day in Fiji or wherever you're at or whatever event they're at." I think it's gonna increase one, trust, and it's gonna build a relationship, right? And two, you're gonna increase sales because people feel like they're actually buying from an actual person as opposed to a brand. So yeah, there's a huge opportunity here with this email. And baseline though, this email is great. Like I really enjoy what they did here, and I enjoy them pulling the stories in. The next level to this is making it more personal. and telling those stories across multiple days as opposed to just one email and touching very, very briefly on each story, which we'll go into detail here in a second. So, but yeah, that's what I think with the from name and from email address. I said I'd go not too far to be brief about it, but there's some more insight for you just on that line, that one piece, that one element with email is that from name matters, that from email address matters. Next piece here, briefly, we have the main header here. So we have a menu items, so men and women, and then you have the brand name, the brand logo. I think this works. It's not too intrusive. So if you're scrolling down, it doesn't catch your eye too much and it doesn't take you away from the message. I do think that, like I mentioned just a second ago with the stories and how personal this email could feel, if you're going to leave the brand name at the top, I'd get rid of the menu. If somebody's going to be, if you're going to be telling the story of the sand dunes, there are very specific products which OluKai show. They show very specific products at the bottom that are related to this area and what they're doing in this area in Fiji, right? So I wouldn't leave to chance, or I wouldn't even give the customer the option to shop men or women or otherwise. I would say, hey, here are the 3 products we would suggest as your dress code, because they do that down here with the theme too. To talk about the dune dress code. So if that's the case, I don't want them generally shopping for men or generally shopping for women. I want them to shop these specific items. This is another reason why, while the brand was in Fiji, sending daily emails across that time they were there actually could make more sense, because then you can focus on one specific or 2 specific items or even a category of items per day and say, hey, this story reminded us of this product. Here's what happened. And you can tell the story and say, this is why we wear this type of sandal or this type of accessory, or this is why we wore this today because we're going surfing or we're going climbing or we're walking through the jungle or whatever. That's going to have a bigger impact on the reader because it's going to have an emotional connection. They're going to be able to see that stuff in their mind as opposed to just saying shop men or shop women. So I do think for what they used for this email with the design focus, the hybrid with the copy and the design, I think it works. But if you did go more personal, more story-based, kind of like they were touching on here, just briefly touching on it, which I think is great, but they could go further. Get rid of this menu. And if you want to, just leave the logo at the top. And you don't have to, you can remove the logo entirely and just go, hey, this email's from Dave or whomever, and tell the story of the day. And this is why we want to show you this product because this is why we wore it today. So those stories are going to show demonstrations, going to say, hey, this is how this works and why we do it. And we eat our own dog food, essentially. And then also, here's a product you can buy in case you go to a beach that's like Fiji, whether it's Fiji or otherwise. The next piece here, I really think this is a great picture. The Sigatoka sand dunes. I really like the idea of telling the story of the sand dunes and why they went. I do like also the shot of the story. So I've not seen this before across other brands. I've done 70 videos now, 70, and I've not seen this whole idea of shopping the story. So bringing the customer into your world, into your story, is just another reason why telling these stories potentially in plain text without the images. And if you do use images, use them specific to the story of that day or that half day or something. I bet you could get away with telling 2 stories, sending 2 emails a day, telling 2 stories a piece, and putting images to those as you're taking pictures as you go through the day, and people would love it. They would eat it up because it's like, I've never been to Fiji, but I want to go. I'm interested in your products, but I haven't bought any yet. And I want to see how this functions and how you guys use them. And like, I bet you probably could have sent an AM, PM story emails every single day for the 7, 10, 15 days, whatever you were there. And people would have absolutely eaten it up and bought and not unsubscribed, right? You would have a few, you'd have a handful, but the majority of the list would be like, oh my God, this is amazing. We want more of this. So yeah, the Sigatoka sand dunes idea with the shop the store idea, I think it's absolutely brilliant. I think you could take it a few steps further. And then we have the copy here. So this is the second mention or second glimmer of a story, or stories come in, right? So I'm going to read this to you, and then we'll go through it. And I'll show you what the stories are at that I saw, and if you can see that as well, and see how important using a story here as opposed to pictures and stuff, but actually telling the story as opposed to just briefly going over it, can actually draw you in more. So here we have our Rachel travels to Fiji, landing us in the center of a national park and national wonder. Okay, so there's right there, national park and national wonder. That's curiosity, that's an interest, right? What's the story of that? Like, why'd you go? What's the whole reason behind going to the park and this national wonder? I want to know what this is. So the Sigatoka sand dunes, I'm assuming, is the national wonder national park combo. That's why they're telling it. But at this point, if you've never been to Fiji and you don't know about the dunes, you don't know that it's a national park, national wonder. So like, you're still like, okay, why are they telling me about the dunes? That's the question, is like, why are you telling me about these sand hills, right? So bringing that in, that's a story in and of itself, right? That's day one. That's like the whole reason we're going. That's the email you send before you take off the plane, right? And you schedule that before you go, and that's why you send it. Okay. Next piece, the Sigatoka sand dunes. So they mentioned it here, right? That's the National Wonder National Park. I finished out the sentence. So after almost getting stuck in flooded trail out there, so here's a story. So day one, let's say day one, they're out in the sand dunes. They're driving around the trails, and they get stuck. They almost get stuck because there's a flood. And so think about that. A flood. What does a flood involve? Water. What does it also involve? Potentially mudslides if there are big enough hills, big enough mudslides, right? So there's like danger, right? There's conflict, which is huge. It's a huge story you could tell. It's a huge piece of conflict you could tell. And what are they wearing? Well, they're wearing their waterproof sandals, or they're wearing their certain these sandals are pure white, but they can't get dirty. Like, you have an opportunity here with this story to sell a specific product, and people will buy because they can visually see that flood. They can visually see the mud coming down the hill. They can visually see the Jeep or whatever you're driving getting stuck and having to push it out or put boards under the tires. And like, the whole time you're doing this, you're not worried about what you're wearing because your feet are covered and you're wearing your sandals, and they're working, right? Even in this situation, you can wear these. So there's a story there, right? So you have two stories so far. You could potentially have three. But you have two. You have one about the National Park, National Wonder, Sigatoka Sand Dunes and why you're going. Then you have getting stuck in the flood and what that meant. You could do the flood itself, driving out, getting stuck, and then what you guys did after because of it and how you plan differently. So that's three emails, right? The next piece, we hopped out of the van, explored archaeological. Let's see here. We hopped out of the van, explored the archaeological site, and even caught a few waves. So we hopped out of the van. So the idea of coming in and out of the van, movement, not staying static. That whole idea of traveling, right? That could be a story itself, and like the whole meaning behind why they started the brand. That could be an origin or a creation story for a certain product. It's like the reason we created this product is because these people are always on the move, but they need something easy to take on and off, and that's durable. Like, there's a story right there. There's four emails. Explore the archaeological site. So the archaeological site, what does that even mean? Like the Sigatoka Sand Dunes, I can see is like a national park, sure, but the national wonder is this site. I want to know what that site is. So tell the story of that site and why you guys went, and what that means to the brand, and why you guys went to go check it out, right? And how you can tie that to a product. Like, maybe there's a durability, maybe there's a traditional, like traditional respect type thing. So if you have a sandal that lasts a long time, or it's a traditional type of sandal and you've made it better, you can tie it to that. So there's five emails, right? If I'm counting correctly here, and then even caught some waves. So there's a couple stories there with surfing. I've only tried surfing twice. I absolutely suck at it. I couldn't pick it up. But the idea of people who are newer at surfing, who are older at surfing, who know how to do it, who people are newer who are still learning, the idea of respecting the waves and the environment, talking to locals, eating food there on the beach, like whatever the situation was, there are stories there. So there's potentially anywhere from 5 to 8, maybe even 10 stories here on your trip that you could be selling specific products with. So this one paragraph right here has packed so much into it, and it's so dense. And if you just pull on each of these strings, it's an email, right? It's a reason to sell. And I think that OluKai could spend more time pulling these stories out and making them their individual emails and linking to those products specifically. Again, making the entire Fiji trip its own promo, its own like, come along with us to Fiji, be a part of behind the scenes with the brand and how we test our products, how we find new products, how we talk to locals, how we, all these things that you do as a brand. You could pull out just this paragraph. Like, it's huge, it's super dense. And this is one of the big reasons why I want to break this email down, is because there's so much story opportunity here and so much selling opportunity here that I just had to poke at it. I had to see, okay, here's how we unpack this. Here's what we could do with it. Here's some ideas. So that's that paragraph. And we're about a quarter way through the email. There's a ton in this one. So next here we have a supporting quote here from Tyler Ray. There's a lot of history in mana, divine power here. From pottery to bones and artifacts, walking along these dunes is like walking with our ancestors. That right there, that quote right there, could be its own email with its own story. Like, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean to the people who are buying? What does that mean to people who are shopping? Why does that matter to the brand? And then tie that back to the idea of like, one of the reasons why you sell the products is because you want to connect people to their ancestors in the past, and they want these sandals to last into the future, so that you can tell the stories that you had, or the stories you experienced while you were wearing them. That's a huge story. You could make that a story, right? It's more like an origin story. It could be more like a reason why story. And there's just so much you can pull out of this. Just this quote. This quote can support basically all the stories. It could be the theme of the entire promo. Is like, we're trying to connect you with the ancestors, walk along the dunes, and just connect to the past. And that being the theme, this quote supports all of it. You can do a lot of selling with this without it being sleazy or scammy. It's genuine from the brand, from the company, from the people, sharing it with their customers and say, hey, come along with us and learn what we're learning, and do what we're doing. The next section here I really like. They call it the Dune dress code. So going along with that respect thing, with the whole idea of walking with the ancestors, walking along these dunes, like walking with our ancestors, the whole idea of a dune dress code, like, what do you actually wear to respect the area and respect the site? And OluKai goes through certain products here that actually say, hey, these are the types of products we would wear if you were doing this type of adventure. Again, and I'm going to sound like a broken record here. Story. There's so much story here in this email that you can pull out and make 5, 10, potentially 15 emails if we strung it along. If they did enough things, enough events while they were at Fiji, which I'm imagine they did, you can pull a ton out of this. So you got your first product here, Dune dress code. Sand calls for sandals. This is the one go-to if you want nonstop comfort. So here's an angle there for that email. So that's number 6, right? That's a 6 email we can do just for this product. The next one here, the ka'apehi, I think is how you say it. I'm not sure. And so go ahead and get the ka'apehi dirty. All that sand and mud will rinse right off. So here's something that's very very interesting here. These are like almost pure white sandals. I would call them pure white sandals, and they don't get dirty. That in and of itself, that feature in and of itself, that can be an email. And you can tell the story of how getting stuck in that flood, wearing these sandals, them getting dirty, and literally just rinsing them off in the water and putting them back on, they were fine. They're still white, right? That right there, you can pitch that product in that story. And you can use that story to pitch a number of products. And so there's an example there of a story pitching a product. Something else that they do really well in this email is they mix in certain activities or cultural connections with Fiji into here without selling. So they just, in this piece here, there's a surf break just beyond the dunes that offers some of the most consistent waves in Fiji, especially at low tide. So they show a picture of this person surfing. They have boards and just the idea of being in Fiji and surfing. So they connect that back to the environment and just the experience of being there in Fiji. So this right here, again, like I mentioned before, the surfing, they mentioned it in the top piece, in the top copy there. This is a story. This isn't just a picture with a line of copy. Like you could expand this out of like a lesson you learned while surfing that day in Fiji. And it's unique because it's in Fiji, and it's unique because it's that person telling the story. You could even do a strategy where each day a different person from the team writes, quote unquote, writes an email and sends it and pitches a product based on, on their experience in Fiji. So you can make this a team effort. You can do a solo person that's like, I'm taking over for the week because we're in Fiji, etc. There's a ton of things you can do with this. Next, the Twahine or Twahini. I'm not sure. We'll figure it out later, I guess. But this one, these sandals, ocean or land, this waterproof leather sandal has you covered. So whatever you want to get out of that, you can pitch that. It's waterproof, and it's that feature there. You could talk about surfing, after surfing. There's different ways. There's different reasons why water's involved, right? So you can pitch that and say, hey, this is why we wear these sandals while we surf, because they're waterproof. We can literally go in and out of the water, and they don't break, right? They don't wear, they don't break. It's really easy to keep clean. And the same thing here for the Ohanas, water friendly and supportive Ohanas, the ideal post surf style. So again, they're talking about the surf here. So if you haven't already noticed, all the experiences that the brand had in Fiji, they could tie each of those little stories, those experiences, those moments to a product. There has yet to be one where they can't tie to a product. And you can tie almost any story to almost any product. You just have to figure out what the emotional connection is and that lesson is. If you can figure out those two things, you can connect stories to almost any product. There are some limitations and exceptions, obviously, but there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of leeway when it comes to story selling your products. And the last piece here, if you ever make the trek out here, be sure to treat this sacred place with respect, which that's the whole concept and hook up this is respecting the sand dunes out there in Fiji and the islands and the culture and the people itself. So the rest of the email is pretty standard. So you have the features of why you should shop this brand. You have your hashtag here for social, you have your socials, your contacts, and your standard footer info. So with that being said, I'd say the one big insight of this is, if you're doing an event, if you're going somewhere, if you're taking the team somewhere, if you're going to do something that's not a holiday or a culturally recognized event or anything like that, that situation you're putting your team into, you're going to, can be a reason to send emails. This one here, OluKai went to the Sugutoga sand dunes in Fiji. This is a huge opportunity that they tried to capitalize on, which they probably did. And they could also expand it more and say, hey, over the next week or 15 days or however long we're out there, we're going to be sending you an email day telling the stories of the day. So every morning you're getting a story from the day prior, and we're going to tell you a story, and we're going to show you some products, show you a product we wore or we had on while we were going through the story. That in and of itself will move more product than showing a picture of sand dunes and saying shop the story. Even though this is a great freaking concept, I love the idea of shop the story. Telling the story of being on those sand dunes is going to be more emotionally resonant. It's going to be more emotionally powerful to give somebody to take action, as opposed to just the branding approach to it, as opposed to a direct response. So yeah, that's the big insight is you have stories, pull those stories out of those events and use the event as a reason to tell stories so you can sell your product. With that being said, go ahead and check out my other videos. As of this video, I've got 70. So you've got a lot of insights you can get through there. So go check those videos out. This is a part of my 100 emails, 100 days breakdown challenge. So follow along if you want to get more videos like this as I publish them. And in the meantime, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching.